I've had this idea for years, and every time I think about making this video, I stop myself, because I know most of you are going to disagree with me. I know the comments are going to go insane, but the more I've replayed it, the more I've thought about it, and the more I've gone through the expansions and thought about the lore, I've come to the same conclusion. Something changed in 2007, and some of you may love it, but I think it changed the game for the worst. This is how TBC ruined WoW. Well, when I say ruined, I just mean slightly killed the spirit of the game and expanded the game into more of a zones and a place it didn't really need to be. Azeroth was unfinished. So, let's get into it. For over a decade, Warcraft told one story. From Warcraft, Orcs and Humans, Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft. It all took place in one world, bar a little bit in Warcraft 3. But Azeroth, a grounded, high fantasy world. Forests, kingdoms, plague lands, barrens, desert and mountains. Think about Azeroth. When you're playing it, it doesn't feel like a game. It feels like a world, and the game just happens to be set in that world. Everything is so amazing. Architectures, these natural lands, caves, and realistic things you could imagine in real life. And that's the beauty of WoW, and that's the beauty of the graphics in WoW. I always think one of the most important things with WoW is actually how poor the graphics are. The poorness and the style of the graphics allows your imagination to fill in on the details, and that's what makes the game so much more fun, and it seems realistic. And when Classic launched, it wasn't just a game, it was a world. 2 entire massive continents, open and dangerous, mystery, but also grounded in a realistic fantasy with the Alliance kind of stone structures that have some resemblance to Germany and England especially. While also having some of the classic fantasy tropes and mystery from other worlds, it wasn't really about that, and the mystery was made that interesting. Azeroth itself was the main character, and we were just a tiny speck on there, questing, and really this is where I start to see the quote-unquote creep towards being a main character. In Azeroth, we were a small person riding around the ground mount, everyone's together, and you had no real escape. You had to all run down the paths, you experience people, and that's part of the game, that's part of the MMO, and you had to ride there. The world felt enormous, and most importantly, it felt real, and there was also unexplored mysteries which could be expanded upon in the lore in the past. And also Wrath of the Lich King, you could have used Northrend and bridged that gap into Northrend and still kept the game inside Azeroth, and maybe use some of the Sunwell zones, etc. that is used in TBC. And essentially gone down some of the other paths that should really be taken in Classic Plus. But that's a video for another day. But you all know the tropes, Uldum, Hyjal, etc. But back to Azeroth. Back then, the world wasn't just a backdrop for content, it was the content. You met people on boats, you fought over quest mobs, you got ganked on the way to Blackrock Mountain. And Blackrock Mountain, look at that, how could that exist with flying mounts? The dragons are flying around in the middle, it's absolutely epic. When you're flying up there, it's just not the same. Anyway, I don't want to be a rant, I'm going to try and, provide evidence and accounts like this to try and prove what I'm saying. Certain things require awe. And you remembered stuff like the paths. Like I've been running a secret way through the hills into Scholarmont as a horde because it's faster. And time travel wasn't a wasted, it was immersion. You felt small, as I said before, but that was magic. And over the time of the first few years, and even Classic and all that, the original lore of Warcraft has something magic. The original races, the writing, it was made by them high quality nerds, and that's what they were, to be fair, but that's why the writing was great. The stories were awesome. And the setting is so grounded. There's also a little bit of humour in there. It's that tongue-in-cheek style, but it fits so well. And you could go around America, for example, and see most of these zones in real life. Maybe not in England where I am, but you could definitely see it in a lot of other places and travel around the world. And even when I go to certain woods and forests, I'm just going to keep that in there. I say it's like Elwyn or Dartwood, we should have the music in there. And there's even cobble roads in some of the towns I'm from, which just remind me of the streets of Stonewind. Compared to when we go through the portal, there's nothing like that. It feels so manufactured and fake. So let's talk about when we go through the Dark Portal. And then we walk through the Dark Portal. In 2007, World of Warcraft The Burning Crusade launched. And that is where I'm going to lose some of you, because I don't think TBC killed WoW overnight. I think it changed WoW overnight. And the change never got reversed. We didn't expand World of Warcraft, we left it. We went to Outland, a shattered planet, 5 leveling zones, floating island and alien skies. For the first time in Warcraft's history, it didn't feel like a high fantasy game, it felt like a space game, and that just isn't the Warcraft I knew. And that's without mentioning flying. So let's just have a little think and look about the contrast of the game and where the game started and where it went to. Now I know I've read all the lore books about Draenor, blah blah blah, the Burning Legion, the Titans, all this Sagaras, but that's not for us. We're fighting dragons and small time kind of, you know, realistic criminal government conspiracies and small time kind of baddies. We're not fighting world changing demons, even though we did fight Cthulhu. But they've come to attack us and our world. As the humble adventures of Azeroth, we have to come together to stop them. While I don't really have any issue with the plot of Burning Crusade, as I think Karazhan is great, and all the boss and the raids and stuff, I just don't think the zone and the setting is great. Blizzard, it was really an expansion in order to sell Illidan stuff. It was an expansion based on Illidan, a popular character, and even if you've read the book Legion, I've got it signed from when I went to BlizzCon and read it on the way back. It even tells you basically Illidan was never a bad guy. Everyone kind of knew this, but it fully tells you at the time of when the Burning Crusade and Black Temple's happening, he's actually sending his people, his demon hunters, out into the Nether to try and kill the Burning Legion and get Sagaras, and he was even sneaking onto planets and setting up these teleportation devices. Just no one knew about it. So that'd been one of my main issues with Illidan. It was just like a fanboy kind of story when he could have been used in better places. But again, my issue isn't with Illidan himself, it's more like the location and the flying. Karazhan, for example, is a great place. Makes sense, right? You get the Tiesh, teleports to Karazhan, it's inside Azeroth. This is perfectly how the Burning Crusade should have gone. It should have been based in the Caverns of Time, and you went through all these zones and kind of different time pockets, and you did stuff through Azeroth, and then you did kind of like Zulaman, Karazhan, and other kind of places, and kept it in line in Azeroth while opening new zones. It would have been perfect. So let's talk about flying. For the first time, you could just mount up and completely ignore the world around you. Beneath you, no danger, no terrain, no roads, no interaction with anyone unless you choose to. The world stopped being something you move through and it started being something you skipped over. You just fly up high and press Alt and you auto run forward or numlock or whatever it is. Once you fly, the world stops mattering. And when the world stops mattering in World of Warcraft, what's the point? And no one... Does anyone like have a soft spot for the zones, for the lore, for the places, for the look of Outland? It doesn't feel like home. It feels like a different world, which is supposed to, but I don't know, I'm just not fond of Outland, and I just really don't like that idea. At least with like in Wrath, Dalaran feels like part of the civilized kind of Azeroth humans. I don't know, I'm playing Horde this time and I don't know, it just doesn't feel like Orgrimmar, whatever to me. I'm very alliance based in these videos in how I view the game, I guess. So here's the idea I've wrestled with for years. The Burning Crusade didn't ruin WoW because of the raids, it didn't ruin it because of class balance, it ruined it because it broke the illusion of Azeroth. Because from that point on, expansions weren't about building the world, they were about replacing it, and I think that's where the soul of the game began to fade. It felt like we'd just gone on little trips out here, there, every other expansion, and when they came back they destroyed the place anyway with Cataclysm. Truly, I think one of the best expansions was Mop, how that was set on Azeroth, and you kind of found it, and we you know, you go back to the home places, Stormwind would be visited again, etc. But this isn't a video about Mop, but that's kind of the feel I was looking for, Mop, Wrath, etc. So let's talk about some counterpoints. Karazhan. Why is one of the best raids not even in Outland? I'm talking about Karazhan. The Gothic Tower in Deadwind Pass, haunted halls, opera events, ghostly banquet tables and arcade experiments gone wrong. Karazhan doesn't feel like Outland, it feels like classic WoW, it feels like Warcraft, and everyone loves that raid for that reason. Whether they know it or not, it has that bit of magic and that silliness of every single bit of Azeroth. You know, there's the dungeons and stables at the bottom, the chess event, opera, and then at the end it even has Prince Malchezaar, an alien, an Eridar. That little bit of mystery, that's enough. Why is he at the top? Why does he have Gorehowl? An interesting question. But this is the level of mystery and intrigue that made WoW great. That was just a perfect, what's that? So let's think about this anyway. Was it even supposed to be for TBC? Karazhan wasn't really designed for TBC. I've got John Start's book, The Warcraft Diary, and if it was planned for vanilla development after Naxxramas, the legendary Atish directly teleports you to Karazhan. Think about it, Karazhan and Nax to chase down the Guardian. He knew more, he warned Arthas, he surely knows more. Where would you go after you've taken out KT in Azeroth? We could try and get some information out of Medivh. Where is he? What's happened? And it also leads on to giving us information and lore about the Dark Portal. Maybe the Dark Portal should have been a raid or a dungeon after, and you kind of go into Hellfire Ramparts and see. Let's talk about Karazhan. It feels intimate, mysterious, grounded, like you're almost at a Disney ride. You walk through Deadwind Pass, there's no floating crystals in the air, it's dark, it's nasty, you know. It's depressing, it's every day in England when you're walking in the rain. No alien energy feels, just a cursed tower, broken kingdom, and the atmosphere. It's what people remember. When you talk about TBC nostalgia, jeez. We just talk about a good raid in Azeroth, which was in TBC, and really should have been for vanilla. Or maybe it's just me coping as the last part of the old Azeroth hangs on. But let's think about this. Let's ask a question. What if Karazhan had launched in vanilla? I want, instead of leaving Azeroth in 2007, Blizzard had continued expanding it. More zones, more kingdom, more stories grounded in the world we already live. Would it be something that could be interesting? And hopefully we're going to find that out this year at BlizzCon. Well, what do I think the answer would have been? I think we should have gone with a mixture of Wrath and some Classic Plus ideas mixed in with Zul'Aman and obviously Hyjal. We would throw Illidan in there with some kind of Malfurion stories. Maybe he could do something with some kind of elementals or the Dream, depending on if they want to expand that in that kind of Classic Plus idea of their expansion. But we'll expand that in a different video. So to recap, I don't generally think TBC, the idea, the gameplay, whatever is bad. I just think the zone's bad and flying ruins the game, the community, and steps away from that MMORPG setting. The setting itself, it feels unnatural and it feels like it takes the game away from a fantasy game. It's more of a sci-fi kind of feeling, and I don't play World of Warcraft personally for a sci-fi game, even though I know a lot of the lore is set up that way when you really go into it, but these are all later lore changes. And in the original lore, there's nothing like the light, etc. being a force. Though we did have aliens, the Burning Legion and Titans, etc., but they were more mysterious in the game, and we were just a little speck on there, kind of sorting out human political drama. The game takes a step away from that as we start killing people like Kil'jaeden or banishing Kil'jaeden, for example. But I'm sure loads of you disagree, so get it down in the comments because I want to hear you. By any means, I don't hate the game, and I've leveled up already, so more videos will be coming out. It's just my theory and my ideas building towards Classic Plus. I'm really thinking about what I like and what really draws me to WoW, the magic, the music, and the zones. What I think about when I think about WoW. So definitely don't think about the TB zones ever. While I do sometimes thinking about Grizzly Hills, for example, Ice Crown, and some of the mop zones, because some of them are great. So as I said, give the video a like, subscribe, and say what would you do. Could we fight Kel'Thas somewhere around the Sunwell and Silvermoon City or somewhere else like that, and add him in that way, and you know, Kil'jaeden somehow comes through the Dark Portal, and yeah, I don't know. Put your ideas below, and thank you. See you soon. Cheers.